Hey there and welcome back to the video series. So in the previous video we started coding the register route, and we have also made the register validation code that will help us to validate the input we get from PostMan. So the next check is to see if the email is already registered, and the way we do this is that we will make a new constant that's called email exist. And because we're using an asynchronous function up here, we're going to mark this with a wait because we're interfacing with the database. It might take a bit time here. So the way we do this is that we again use our user definition that we defined up there. So we have a user definition, and I think actually maybe I should do this in capital, because normally we have this, or I tend to have this in capital, the user definition. So we have our user model, and the way we do this is that we can use find1, the find1 method, and then we supply our email that we get from the request, and then the body. Okay, so now we are asking the database MongoDB to see if we already have a user with this email. And if we have email exists, how should we respond to the user? We are going to return a response of status 400 JSON response with an error. Whoop. If I can type correctly here, and let's just write email already exist. Okay. And this is an error message made by us, so it's not related to Joy as it was up in here. This was produced by the Joy library that produced a suitable error message depending on what is not fulfilling the requirements. So this is just a message made by us here. Okay, so that is the check if the email already exists or if it's already registered in the database. Next up is if we pass these two checks, then we make sure that it is validated according to our requirements, and also that it doesn't exist in the database. So the next is that we can hash the password that we provided. So we're going to make a constant, a salt first, and again wait, and then we are going to use a new library because we need something to help us with hashing or generating the salt for this hash. So we're going to come this way, and then we're going to find our command line interface. Just going to clear this one out here. So we are going to need a library called bcrypt. So we're going to run npm install bcrypt. So then npm is going to install this library for us, and we can see after it has, there are a couple of deprecations warning here, and it has installed it in our dependencies. We can see bcrypt. Okay, so that is nice. And let's just go back to our NodeMon here. So now we can include our new library. Whoop. And let's just write a bcrypt require. You can see we got bcrypt. So now we have included bcrypt. And if we go back here, we can take our line again here. So now we have a wait. Then we can write bcrypt, and it has a nice method called generate salt. And we're just going to apply 10 in the number of rounds it should do for generating the salts. Okay, so we got the salt here, and we make a new constant with a password. Make a new await, and we use bcrypt, and then we generate a hash that is based on the password that we get, and also on the salt that we generated in the line above. Okay, so now we've hashed the password. That is nice. Let's see in the last logic segment here that we will now create the user object. So we will make a new user constant that is a new user based on our Mongoose definition. And we will have a name that is the request. Whoop. And it will have the email. And also the password that we created just before. Okay, so now we have our user object, user JSON object, and we can pass this along into the database. So now we're actively asking the database to do something, to do some modifications. So let's have a try and a catch around this, because we want the database to save some data now in there. So we take the constant, saved user, and let's use our user and then save. Let's see if I'm doing this correctly. It should be it's being a little bit. Let's just rename this to user object. So we actually use our constant here. So we save this in the Mongoose database. And then we should respond JSON. And if something happens here, let's see here, we will respond with that there is no error, and also that we're just going to return the saved user, and then the ID, and this is the ID that we get from MongoDB. So we're going to return a response in JSON that there was no error, because we did not reach the catch clause. Otherwise we would not have been in this line here. If there was an error in this line 39, it would have been caught in the catch that we're going to write in a minute. So when we get here, it means that this line of code should have succeeded, and then there is no error, and then we return the data that is the generated ID number from MongoDB Atlas. Okay, but if we have an error, then we will respond with status 400, and we respond with JSON. Just pass along the data that we got from the exception there. All right, so this more or less is the code for the register route. So let's see what happens if we test it out in PostMan. So here we have the route for the registering, and we can see that we violated some of the requirements. So if we send this again, it should produce the same error message. If we enter a valid user, so it is more than 6 characters long, what happens in our response here? So now we can see we get the error null, status 200, and we get the data that was produced when we saved the user. If we head back to MongoDB Atlas, and let's see here, if we refresh, we got our products definition here with the 2 products in there, or we got an error product there. But let's go to the users. You can see we had a user already, but we have the username and we have the hashed password, and then the date when it was created, and the name and the email XXX. So it seemed to work right now. Our code for saving the user, it will return our ID, will generate the salts, and if we test it out, if we already have the user, what happened? So now we have this user with this email, what happens if I send the same request again? So now we will have the user with this email. It should fail in some way. So if we send it again, we can see error, email already exists. So this is the code here that kicks in, that it has already found an user with this email and return the status 400, email already exists. So this is the code for creating a user in the database. So in the next videos, we will start to make the code for logging in the user and actually attaching the authentication, creating the JSON Web Token to our other routes. So I hope you make this work and have fun with this. Bye bye.